Okay, so we are live. First, want to welcome everyone at Wellesley, Hamilton, and Colgate. I'm Kristen Eshelman. I'm Director of Instructional Technology at Davidson College. I'm joined here today by Dr. Erlen Stevens. He is Professor of Chemistry, and Dr. Pat Sellers, who is Vice President for Strategic Partnerships. And we'd like to frame this overview first by just explaining that there are no existing institutional initiatives for blended learning at Davidson, but rather we have multiple digital initiatives going on where blended learning is just one component under really a larger umbrella of digital learning that we're actively exploring. And those larger initiatives that we want to talk about today are Davidson X, Davidson Next, and then just digital pedagogy in general within the Center for Teaching and Learning. So I will turn it over first to Dr. Stevens.
Thank you, Kristen. So I taught a MOOC on the edX platform. It was in medicinal chemistry. It was a 7-week course, and that course was first taught in spring of 2014. And for fall of 2014, I was teaching a residential medicinal chemistry class. And so the idea was we would take this edX content and use it to blend and flip the course that was being taught here at Davidson. We tried a number of different things with this course, but I really want to talk about 3 separate things. The first of which is we used the MOOC exercises as part of the student's grade in the residential course. And I'll say the MOOC was really designed for a broader audience. It was meant probably an audience that's less qualified for the course than the students that I had on campus. And so when my students went through the edX content, they found the exercises to be fairly easy, and they scored exceedingly well. And that created a little bit of a problem for managing expectations in the course. So students expected the entire class to be just that easy. So as a result, I think when I do this again, and I hope to do it again with this blended course, I will probably make sure that I have more appropriate content for evaluating the students, probably supplement the MOOC content with some more difficult and more rigorous homework sets. Another component where we blended and flipped, we had in-class discussion. So if the students are learning the theory outside of class, we have class time where we can have discussions on the primary literature. And these discussions, I think, actually went very well. But there were instances where I selected articles for us to discuss, and they were just a little bit too difficult for the students, and therefore I spent more time lecturing about these articles and actually having class discussions. And that sort of defeated the purpose of flipping the course and blending the course. So I think the solution for that next time I try this will be to bring in, to be more careful about the articles that I select. And also there are some social media outlets that have really nice discussions about this content, and that'll be at a more accessible level for the students, and I think will hopefully facilitate some of the in-class discussions. The third thing I'd like to talk about that we tried, we had our Davidson students teaching, or they were forum moderators in the online course. So while I was teaching my residential class, we were also repeating the MOOC online. And so the students, because they had completed that content in the MOOC, they were qualified to be forum moderators. And as forum moderators, we set this up so the students moderated in groups, and as they moderate in a group, they had specific time slots during which they were to watch the discussion board. And as it so happens, not all of those time slots were as active as the other time slots. So some students had really very few opportunities to engage with the MOOC students. And that made it very difficult for me to evaluate exactly how well each student had performed, and I was trying to give a grade on this. And that was it was just hard to be even-handed with the grading in that part of the course, and that's of course a big problem. So I think if I implement this again, and I hope to, I think I'll be less strict about when students moderate and let them do that on their own schedule, and probably give them a quota. You need to have so many interactions, and then I can grade those particular interactions. Now, I presented some negatives about blending and flipping, some of the challenges I encountered, but really it was a great experience. I think that most of the students enjoyed kind of the openness of the class, in contrast to how most of our science courses are presented. So it was a good experience, but I am eager to try this again and fix some of those problems that arose.
All right, thank you, Erlen. Pat, do you want to tell us a little bit about Davidson Next?
Sure, thanks, Kristen. At Davidson, we have 2 parts to our partnership with edX. One part are the MOOCs that we've developed, and Erlen's course is one of those. The other half is an initiative we're calling Davidson Next, and the idea here is that we're putting together online materials for students taking high school AP courses in calculus, physics, and macroeconomics. There seems to be a pretty great demand for these types of materials, and we also have a pretty extensive set of people here on campus with a lot of experience working with advanced placement in these different areas. So what we did was to partner with edX and College Board to develop a framework of challenging concepts. We took the 10 most challenging concepts in each of those fields and tried to, well, what we're doing this year is putting together online units, one unit on each particular concept. Each unit consists of an introductory section where we evaluate the student's existing knowledge. Then we have a series of learning cycles where students go through exercises to understand and learn new material through videos and a little bit of printed material. But then we have interactive exercises, and then finally we have some assessments so the students can gauge how well they have mastered the particular material. These units are not intended to be a full-on AP course, although we're going to try to combine them into a MOOC next fall. The goal instead is to try to help students and teachers master the material in a blended learning format. We're trying to provide more information for the teachers in addition to these online units. We're trying to provide some guidance on how to use online materials in the edX platform in a blended learning framework. One of the biggest points, I think, for our conference in February here at Davidson is that we're trying to add some adaptations to the edX platform. We are developing some interactive software using, I guess there's a graphical calculator that the team is trying to develop. We're also in physics, we're trying to develop vector problems where you can draw a vector on the screen, the student draws a vector on the screen in response to a particular problem, and then the computer automatically grades it. There are a number of other innovations we're trying to develop as part of the online units, and the goal here is to make the units more engaging than you normally get, but also try to expand the capabilities of the edX platform. The things that we can do, we want to try to upload to the edX platform so that other people can use these same problem types. We are also this year, as we develop them, we have a pilot project evaluating the units in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system, which is the local school system. And our target date for rollout is next July or August. And we have those three topic areas, and one of the plans for the future is try to expand into other topic areas beyond calculus, physics, and macroeconomics. There are 32 different AP topics, so we think there's a lot of potential there to move into other areas. That's a brief summary of that project, and now I guess Kristen's going to give us an update on some of the other efforts we have going on individually here at Davidson with blended learning.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. As I mentioned earlier, the Center for Teaching and Learning where I work, and actually there's an incubator classroom behind me right now, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, is really focused on faculty development in all areas of pedagogy. So this runs from course design all the way through assessment. And blended learning is just one of the efforts in this area, but it's one that's devoted to the effective use of the combination of instructional design best practices, technologies, scalable technologies for online learning, and also active learning spaces. So we've been working a lot in these three areas, and particularly that last one. We have a small contingent of faculty who are devoting really, I think, dedicated time to blended learning, and I think the more coordinated effort in this regard is coming from our biology department. Some of that, I think, is a combination of a push from workshops attended through the Associated Colleges of the South, but also a reimagining of their first level bio intro courses in general. They're rethinking the textbook, they're rethinking how they deliver instruction, and blended learning seems to fit in with that nicely. But some other areas, other disciplines include chemistry. Erlen talked a little bit about that, and so there's another chemistry professor who's doing blended learning. But also foreign languages, where we're seeing a lot of interest in blended learning. On the tech front, we've been piloting Echo 360. You may or may not be familiar with that tool. We've been doing this for the last 1.5 years, and we're pretty happy with the scalability of this tech. We're very happy with the analytics that come with the package. And they also have an in-class interactive tool that enables pretty effective peer instruction and some personalized feedback options for faculty. So we're finding a lot of success with that product. We're hoping to continue that in the future. We've also been gathering data around learning space design for the last 3.5 years in the room behind me. I think you can see some movement in there. There's a class that's wrapping up right now, a biology class. This is sort of an incubator space. We have been looking at effective space design for active learning, trying to figure out what works best for our faculty, what works best for our students. And in that data gathering, we've decided we have a pretty good understanding of what that is. We think this is a critical piece of the blended learning puzzle, and we're now beginning to renovate additional rooms on campus so that we can then expand the blended learning options for our faculty. Broader interest, I would say, on campus is there, even though it's a small contingent to begin with, and I think we'll be successful if we can get this implementation tied to a broader institutional commitment, specifically in the areas of scaling tech with tools like Echo 360 and maybe others. edX could be another one. Giving faculty time, I think, is a critical piece here. They need the time to really redesign, reimagine their courses. Staff expertise needs to get training, better training in instructional design, and then just increasing the availability of those active learning classrooms to push this further. So that's where we sit residentially, and hopefully we'll continue to move forward with blended learning. And I'm going to hand it over to Pat to do a wrap-up.
Kristen, thanks. That's a great agenda for our conference, those last points you laid out, because those are, I agree that those are areas that we really could work on throughout all the efforts we have. You know, Erlen talked about Davidson X, I talked about Davidson Next, X versus Next, and then Kristen talked about the Echo 360, and Kristen's final points there were a good statement of the needs that I think Davidson faces if we want to move forward with online learning and blended learning. And all of the people watching this, particularly outside Davidson, may have their own views, their own needs, but that's one of the big things, one of the main reasons we're trying to organize this conference, to bring together all these different viewpoints and try to find out if there is any overlap across some of the institutions about things we can potentially collaborate on. So we're very much looking forward to seeing everyone else's videos and also seeing everyone here in Davidson on February 23rd and 24th, where hopefully the weather will be a little bit warmer than where you're coming from. Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you in February.